You guys today, DiJonai Carrington, after clotheslining Sophie Cunningham, running into the locker room, screaming, "That's white privilege!" Then tweeting 8/23, threatening Sophie Cunningham and the Indiana Fever. DiJonai Carrington now comes out and clarifies what she means when she says white privilege for the Indiana Fever.
So with 2 minutes left in the first quarter, DiJonai Carrington just slapped the dog shit out of Sophie Cunningham. Sophie pops up. She's obviously upset. DiJonai says, "Try me." And then look at Stephanie White. Look at her face. Look. It's mad as shit. Now, number one, this is obviously a flagrant 2. It just is. By the letter of the law, you got to call a flagrant 2. We all know these refs are not.
That girl needs to be thrown out the league. She's not even a good enough player to be bringing this type of drama. She needs to be.
DiJonai Carrington got ejected from a game. And instead of simply letting the situation go, she decided the internet needed to hear her side. It was not an apology or an explanation, but just 2 words posted straight from the locker room: white privilege. And now, days later, she is still defending that post, backtracking, clarifying, and arguing with nearly anyone who dares to challenge it. The situation has turned into a full-blown mess, and honestly, it may be one of the strangest reactions we have seen from a WNBA player all season.
Cunningham, otherwise known as MAGA Barbie in the WNBA, is a superstar player. She's one of the most famous female athletes in the world because she stood up for women in women's sports, saying only biological women should be allowed to play in the WNBA. And for that, she is literally risking her life. Check this out. This is what happened to Sophie Cunningham last night when she was clotheslined by a filthy, dirty player for Chicago who has a name that I can't pronounce, or maybe I just refuse to do that. That's my right as an American. But this is a player that has attacked Caitlin Clark, gouged her eye out, that has now bloodied the face of Sophie Cunningham. And as soon as she did this, she tweeted white privilege, meaning she's declaring this is a race crime. Now, if a white woman was doing this to black women, it'd be the #1 story in the world. She'd be banned from the league forever. But somehow black women are allowed to get away with this against white women. And it's white women in the league who make themselves a target by simply standing up for traditional values and common sense.
Sophie Cunningham has spent this entire season being one of the more outspoken defenders of her Fever teammate, Caitlin Clark. She has gone on record multiple times, saying the league and its officials do not do enough to protect Clark from the physical treatment she faces almost every night. She has called out specific plays, specific players, and even said that some teams have talked in their own locker rooms about wanting to show Clark what the WNBA is really like. That kind of talk does not exactly make you popular around the league, and Cunningham has never really hidden the fact that she knows it.
Goo! That's assault, brother. You can't do that. What the fuck? Is this just the default if you can't think? Or if you just like don't want to take accountability for your actions? Oh my god, this league, bro, this league. Bro, white privilege while you're wearing a bleach blonde dyed wig. I mean, the fuck? What is privileged about that? You stone cold Steve Austin clotheslined her ass. What about that is white privilege? The WNBA stays undefeated. It truly does. They can't get out of their own way.
That history matters here because it helps explain why so many people watched this specific foul and immediately wondered whether there was something more going on than simply a hard basketball play. Cunningham had already positioned herself as one of the players willing to speak up about how Clark is treated on the court. And now, she was the one on the receiving end of a forearm to the face that drew blood. Whether Carrington intended any deeper meaning or not, the optics of the entire situation practically wrote themselves the moment the ejection happened.
It's beyond concerning at this point how far from the plot we have actually gotten. And when I say the plot, I mean the basketball. How far from the game of basketball we have spiraled. When we're talking about the WNBA, you know, we used to joke, it's like, oh, 0 days without drama in the WNBA. This league is living up to it at a rate and a level of concern that we haven't ever had. with all the discussion.
Craziness going on in the WNBA. DiJonai Carrington tweeted out white privilege from the locker room of a game that she was playing in. Get this. She fouls Sophie Cunningham hard. Sophie Cunningham, obviously a white person, fouls her hard. Flagrant 2, gets ejected, goes to the locker room and tweets out white privilege in the middle of the game. Now, here's the kicker to me. A flagrant 2 has to be contact that can lead to an injury that looks excessive. DiJonai, it was about as excessive as possible. If there was any evidence of there being white privilege, this was not it. What the hell do y'all think?
And it's not just Cunningham who has noticed the tension. Legendary broadcaster Dick Vitale weighed in earlier this year after Clark was voted only the 9th best guard in a league-wide player poll, calling the result pure jealousy and predicting that players around the league would eventually realize just how much Clark has done for them financially. That comment took on a different meaning once the Carrington situation unfolded, because here you have another moment involving a player closely connected to Clark and Cunningham taking serious physical punishment. Instead of widespread sympathy from around the league, there was a former teammate publicly celebrating the incident and a head coach offering a softer defense of the player involved. It's difficult to watch that pattern repeat itself without wondering whether Vitale was onto something.
Across the face, coming down, trying to prevent the layup, but that is just a hard hit. That's definitely going to be upgraded, I think, to a flagrant 2, Ryan.
I think that is going to be a flagrant 2. There is
Get what
wind
you fucking
up
deserve.
And just getting her out of the
Lucky
way.
it wasn't a right hook.
Make no mistake about it, Carrington targeted Cunningham. She targeted her because of her political stances. She targeted Cunningham because of the praises that she keeps receiving. She targeted her with a dirty shot that had absolutely nothing to do with basketball. And then after getting ejected, she runs to the locker room to play the fucking victim card. Like she didn't try to just take off Cunningham's head in 4K. Like we all didn't just watch it happen. That is not competition. That is a grown woman swinging on someone who she disagrees with and then screaming racism when she gets held accountable for it. DiJonai Carrington needs to be held responsible, and I'm not talking about just getting ejected from the game. She deserves a suspension. Maybe she'll think twice next time before she tries to take somebody's fucking...
Here's what actually happened on the court. The play itself is not complicated once you watch it closely. Sophie Cunningham was racing down the floor on a fast break, wide open and heading toward what should have been an easy layup. DiJonai Carrington came from behind in pursuit, and instead of simply contesting the shot, she caught Cunningham with a forearm across the face and neck. Cunningham crashed hard onto the floor. The ball somehow still went in, but nobody was talking about the basket afterward. Officials stopped the game, went to the monitor, and upgraded the call to a flagrant 2, which under WNBA rules resulted in an automatic ejection. There was little room for debate. The wind-up, the impact, the follow-through, the risk of injury, and the fact that Cunningham was in a vulnerable position all contributed to the decision. The play checked every box officials look for when determining whether a foul rises to the level of a flagrant 2.
Sophie Cunningham came down on her leg. She could have been injured. So they said, yo, get out of here, dog. Get out of here. Then, I don't know if y'all were looking at her lips. She was talking about, try me. Try me. Yo, you already tried Sophie? You got all the samples of Sophie. You talking about try me. What are you talking about? This lady is unhinged right now, man. This is crazy work. And it makes you wonder. It's like, dog, you were the best player for the Sky at this moment. Look how she landed on the leg. Oh my goodness. Like, you were the best player for the Sky, and you decided to do this? You weren't even thinking about the game. You was thinking about some kind of revenge or something. Somebody sent you on a mission. You were on a mission, dog. I don't know what you had going on here, but DiJonai, this is unacceptable. Disrespectful, disgusting, and I'm glad they got you up out of there.
Carrington was separated from Cunningham as teammates, and officials stepped in to pull the two apart. And here's something worth pointing out, because it says a lot about how this league can treat reactions differently depending on who is reacting. The officiating crew chief said after the game that Cunningham was not penalized for her response because it was considered acceptable given the severity of the contact she had just taken to the face. So, even the referees essentially confirmed that what happened to her was serious enough to justify her getting heated in that moment.
Photo from the flagrant 2 on DiJonai Carrington against Sophie Cunningham, where she proceeded to go into the locker room and tweet white privilege after being thrown out of the game. Not going to comment on that situation, but I will say this. This is a flagrant 2. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, don't matter. This is a flagrant. I mean, she clotheslined her. What more do you want? So this looks very bad. It just shows that the WNBA is nowhere near where they need to be professionally, because again, this is a clothesline. It's flagrant 2.
That's the part that makes everything Carrington said afterwards so confusing. If the officials themselves are saying the contact was excessive and unnecessary, and if they determined that Cunningham's reaction to being hit in the face was completely understandable, then where exactly does race enter this conversation? Nobody upgraded the foul because of who committed it or who received it. They upgraded it because a player was struck across the head and neck while going up for a shot. That is a rule that applies to every player in the league, regardless of who they are.
Mention the fact that she said white privilege. That is the story. The story isn't that she got kicked out. It's that she tweeted out white privilege as though because Sophie Cunningham is white, somehow that's why she got kicked out. They go on to defend her, the story, the narrative that she's not a dirty player. She makes plays like this all the time. I put together a little clip of DiJonai Carrington, who is definitely one of the dirtiest players in the WNBA. I don't know if we can roll it, but she's taken her long fingernails. She's scratched Caitlin Clark's eyes out. She's had multiple instances of chasing people down from behind, trying the same swat and smashing them in the head and causing mini fights. She pulled another girl's hair. I don't know if we'll get to that clip in a second when she's falling. Totally dirty play. This is not a skin color thing. She has a history of making dirty plays, and it's fine. The NBA, you can be a rough and tumble league. Now, where this thing gets absolutely bananas is when you start making it into a race and culture war, and the people talking about it are not mentioning 99% of the time that she went back and tweeted white privilege. White privilege how?
But instead of simply accepting the ejection and moving on, Carrington went straight to her Threads account and posted white privilege, tagging the Indiana Fever directly underneath it. There was no further explanation at the time, just those 2 words sitting there for the entire internet to interpret however it wanted. And of course, many people interpreted the timing in the same way. She had been ejected after making contact with a white player's face, and within minutes, white privilege appeared on her page while the Indiana Fever were tagged. It did not take long for fans and sports commentators to connect those events and begin debating what Carrington meant by the post.
Paying attention to what DiJonai Carrington did to Sophie Cunningham, it was not a race-based decision. And to call that a white privilege-based foul is to completely undermine the term of white privilege and to also completely ignore the rules in basketball. You hit her in the head, you drew blood, you didn't connect with the ball at all whatsoever. So to me, it was just very ignorant and to some degree asinine by DiJonai Carrington to suggest that that call was based on white privilege. Have we seen examples of white players make that same foul and get away with it? Yes. Have we seen examples of black players make that same foul and get away with it? Yes. There was no white privilege involved in that specific call. DiJonai, you hit her in the head and you drew blood.
That's when Emmanuel Aiko stepped in, and he did not hold back on his show, explaining why he believed the situation had nothing to do with race and everything to do with basketball rules. He pointed out that the foul was called because Carrington hit Cunningham in the head, drew blood, and never made contact with the basketball, adding that both white and black players have been involved in similar hard fouls before, meaning the specific call was not about anyone's skin color. Aiko called the situation ignorant and asinine, arguing that Carrington appeared to react emotionally in the moment and then tried to explain the post differently after facing backlash. He noted that hard fouls happen across every possible combination of players in the league, but this incident received particular attention because Carrington posted white privilege immediately after her ejection and tagged the Indiana Fever. Carrington later pushed back, saying she never claimed the foul itself was an example of white privilege and that this was Aiko's assumption. She challenged him to use his critical thinking skills, defended her understanding of the subject, and said she had studied at a top university and would never use a phrase with such historical and social weight as a rhetorical weapon without evidence. Essentially, Carrington argued that her post was not about the foul, but critics questioned that explanation because she posted it immediately after the ejection, right after the officials reviewed the play, and while tagging the team of the player involved. Whether her intended meaning was different or not, The timing naturally caused many viewers to connect the post directly to the incident and turned an already controversial foul into a much bigger debate.
Act as though you discovered the moon. You can't act as though you are the genius in a room and everybody else is idiotic. What I mean by that is, if you are going to suggest that we should think critically about a statement, white privilege, when you at the Indiana Fever, you didn't give us much to think critically about. You uttered a phrase, white privilege, of which is both incredibly inflammatory and also a very volatile word, but you didn't give us any context. So now we, as the interpreter, since you posted it publicly on Threads for the world to see, we, the interpreter, now have to try to figure out what exactly were you talking about? Well, common sense would deduce that you were talking about fouling a white individual and getting ejected for fouling that white individual. Now, as I said on social media and I will say in real life, if that is not what you were talking about implying, then that's on me. I will stand down and I will stand corrected. But the last thing I must again reiterate, we live in a speaker-oriented country. Speaker-oriented, receiver-oriented. Speaker-oriented country. It is on you, the speaker, to be clear, to be direct, and to be obvious with what you are speaking about. It is not on the receiver, the reader.
Aiko clearly wasn't buying the walk back either. He responded on social media with sarcasm, basically saying that if Carrington insisted the two things were not connected, he would stand corrected. But the burden was on her to make that clear in the first place instead of leaving two loaded words open to interpretation. And that's the core problem with this saga. You can't post white privilege immediately after a controversial ejection, tag the exact team involved, and then be surprised when people assume it was about the ejection. From the critics' perspective, they weren't unfairly jumping to conclusions. They were reacting to what was right in front of them.
Sid Colson saying this, and I know it's a joke. Love a trans foul. This is essentially celebrating a player getting clobbered. You are on TV. You are. Not these other people online. You are. You were on TV basically saying Caitlin Clark was soft for taking a fist to the neck from Alyssa Thomas. You are. You got opportunities because of this organization. You got opportunities because of the like Caitlin Clark brought on your head. You did. You benefited from it. You joined the Indiana Fever for those benefits. You took those benefits. You became more notorious. And as soon as you leave, you rejoin the sisterhood, then it's against Caitlin Clark. And you are celebrating a player getting taken.
Now, here's where this story gets even stranger. Carrington wasn't the only voice cheering this on. Sydney Carlson, who played alongside Cunningham on the Fever just last season, posted her own reaction to the foul, writing that she loved it. A former teammate, someone who shared a locker room with Cunningham, watched her get hit across the face and neck hard enough to draw blood, and instead of showing concern, publicly celebrated it. That says a lot about how divisive Sophie Cunningham and the entire Fever situation has become around the league. This isn't just outside noise from rival fans anymore. It's coming from inside the building, from people who used to share the same locker room.
It was a hard foul. I don't think that DiJonai intentionally came out to get her across the neck like she did, but it did happen, and I thought it was the right call. But, you know, one of the things about Nay is that she's going to play her butt off, man. She's going to compete. Nobody's going to go walking in for a layup. And so I don't oppose the hard foul, but I also don't think that she intentionally went for the neck.
And even Fever head coach Stephanie White, Cunningham's own coach, didn't exactly go to bat for her player the way you might expect. White told reporters afterward that she didn't believe Carrington intentionally went for the neck, but she had no issue with the hard foul itself, saying Carrington was simply competing and that nobody should expect an easy layup against her. That's a strange thing to hear from the coach of a player who was hit in the face hard enough to bleed. Clark and Cunningham, more than almost anyone else in the WNBA right now, have helped drive the league's surge in viewership, ticket sales, and mainstream attention. Networks are scheduling around their games, and arenas that once struggled to fill seats are selling out because fans want to watch them play. Yet throughout the season, there have been moments where players and even coaches seem more interested in pushing back against that momentum through hard fouls, public comments, or cheering when something physical happens to them.
Literally been dragged. She's been called every name but a child of God. Coaches have come out and spoken against her. Fans have come out in the name of calling Sophie Cunningham anti-trans and transphobic. It's not far-fetched to say that the league itself in totality does not like Sophie Cunningham. And yet, After intentionally grabbing Sophie Cunningham around her neck and getting ejected for that, DiJonai runs to Twitter to say the reason why she was ejected was because of the white privilege Sophie Cunningham, a white, straight female, carries in a basically 80% black, almost 90% LGBTQ-led league. Oh yeah, that's where Sophie Cunningham is getting her white privilege, in this WNBA minstrel show of a freaking basketball league. That's where her white privilege is starting to show. DiJonai Carrington, you're a fucking joke. You went up thinking that you were going to get the ball. You knew that you weren't anywhere near getting the ball. And so while you were up in the air, you figured this was your chance to grab her, Sophie Cunningham, around her neck and bring her down by her.
It's a bizarre dynamic when you actually stop and think about it. The players benefiting most from the financial windfall Clark and Cunningham have brought to the league are, in some cases, the same ones seemingly rooting against them. Bigger paychecks, bigger crowds, bigger television deals. All of it tracing back in large part to the attention these two players generate. And still, the reaction from a chunk of the league feels closer to resentment than gratitude. Carrington's foul, her original post, her drawn-out back and forth with Aiko, Carlson's celebration of the hit, and White's soft defense of the player who delivered it all fueled the controversy. Race was never part of that equation, no matter how many words were later typed trying to make it seem like the post was never about the ejection. Carrington can talk about critical thinking skills and top universities all she wants, but the timing of that original post spoke long before her clarification ever appeared, and clarifications after the fact rarely undo what everybody saw.
Players who commits a clear flagrant 2 and then tweets white privilege right after she goes to the locker room. You can't then cry that this is being talked about in racial terms in a culture. She started that. This is a basketball play. The second you go white privilege, and they are talking about it on these telecasts without mentioning what she tweeted. Oh, they're turning into a culture war, turning into a race war. This is our league. Don't let conservatives or the right hijack it. Your player tweeted white privilege, and it had nothing.
Already saw for themselves in real time. This is where the WNBA finds itself now. Caught between celebrating the biggest ratings boom the league has ever seen and dealing with a locker room culture where some of the players benefiting from that boom seem determined to push back against the two names driving it. Carrington's ejection was clean, the officiating got it right, and the review process worked exactly as it was supposed to. What happened after the whistle? The post, the backpedal, the argument with Aiko, and the cheering from a former Fever teammate is the part of this story that isn't going away anytime soon. And it says far more about where this league is right now than any single flagrant foul ever could.